Got my plasma gun here. Gone ahead and drilled a hole all the way into the plasma coil. So I can put my LED here in the back and, oh, that's not going to work very well, is it? Nice. So I've 3D designed these and got them printed from Shapeways. They have a pretty good clear resin with their smooth plastic. And it lights up pretty good. So if you just wanted to take these and use these without doing anything else, you totally could. These are generation 1. I have a better version now on Shapeways. I'll leave a link in the description. But I like to take it one step further. These are all plasma coils that I've cast. So here's a little mold box that I made with the plasma coils I'm going to cast. Where's the video of me doing this? I don't know. And that brings us to pouring some rubber and making this mold. This is Smooth-On's Umu 30. It's a 1:1 by volume silicone rubber. And I really like it because you don't need to degas it or need a vacuum chamber to actually use it pretty effectively. So I've marked 2 cups here and I'm measuring that out. The pink side of it is a little thicker, so it's a little bit more difficult to get it to that line. When mixing these, you want to scrape the sides and avoid adding air if you can. Once we've mixed it pretty well, we're going to pour it into the other cup to make sure we get all that silicone goodness and get a good 1:1 ratio of these 2 parts. And I do want to point out that I'm using vinyl gloves, not latex. Latex gloves will actually inhibit the silicone from curing. Before we pour, I'm going to take a disposable brush and brush silicone into all the little ridges on these plasma coils. That way the mold will pick up all of the detail. And that brings us to actually pouring. You're going to want to pour into the corners here and let it fill up from the bottom. That's going to give you the best results. So I'm going to start in the corner, I'm going to pull it up and get a nice thin stream. This will also help get rid of any bubbles that might be left in your silicone. And we're going to set it aside and let it cure. It takes 8 hours, but I typically just let it go overnight. And now it's time to see how we did. I used some jeweler's sprue wax to seal this all up, so now I just have to pop the wax and the box comes right off of it. As the bottom plate peels off, the 2 little mold plates also pop off. I only used a tiny bit of sticky wax to keep those in place. So I'm going to get a nice sharp X-Acto knife and I'm going to come through and cut through all these corners here. I cut them at about a 45-degree angle. It makes it sit a little bit flatter and it looks a little bit nicer to not have those tags. And once that's done, I can get any of that silicone that ran underneath the mold plates. This is pretty thin and almost can be pulled off, but you want to make sure you don't ruin your mold. You've already put a lot of work into this. You want to keep it nice. And now I have a mold for our plasma coils. So it's time to cast. I'm going to use this easy cast here. This is a 2-part epoxy resin. Make sure you read the data sheet and take all your safety precautions. This again is a 1:1 by volume, so I've measured that out, and now I'm taking some pigment. Now this is opaque pigment. This is not translucent pigment. The reason I do that is to diffuse the light from the LED a little bit better. The resin dries clear, so the color that it is before you pour it is basically the color you're going to get when it's done being poured. So mix it until you like the color. You want to make sure you're using actual resin pigment. If you use anything with water in it, your resin will foam up and you'll ruin your cast. You want to mix your resin really well, especially with this pigment. The pigment is kind of thick, so you have to mix it extra well to make sure the pigment is actually distributed through the resin evenly. So now it's time to actually pour this mold. Now, the plasma coils are so small that you're pretty much going to have to pour a blob on it and make sure that it distributes into each of the plasma coils. I'm going to smack it against the table here a couple times to try to release any bubbles that might be in there. And then I'm going to take this popsicle stick and just wipe away all this excess resin on top and let it cure. Now this stuff takes a full 3 days to fully cure. You can get faster curing resins, but I really like how clear this one cures. And here you have it. It's been a full 3 days, all cured up and ready to be removed from the mold. You can see there's basically no bubbles in these. They cured pretty well. So I'm going to pull these out and we'll go ahead and hook up an LED and put it behind it so you kind of get an idea of what it would look like in your miniature. Here's some examples of the plasma coils that I've cast that I've then put in miniatures and put LEDs behind them. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching.